Yeah, g'day guys. Today I've been wanting to do the drive shafts for a while, so I'm finally getting into doing them, but I come across a problem. Got to tidy up a few things first, then we'll get into these drive shafts. Here we go. So the other thing I wanted to try and tackle today in today's video is the handbrake. This is the handbrake cable that comes from the diff. If we have a look-see under here, there's a grommet. That's where the original one goes into the car. So I might just poke this one straight up in there and then we'll hook it up inside. This is the original handbrake out of the Lancer, because it had two cables, one to each rear wheel. It has two little things there, but that's okay, we can work with that. So I can bolt it back into the original spot with those two bolts there. I just probably won't have a shroud or a center console over it. That's okay, I don't really need it. So I can bolt that in and then work out where that cable comes out on the inside and see what I need to make up the difference. Or maybe just a bolt or something, because it's got a threaded piece there and a nut, then another threaded piece, then another nut. So anyway, I'll have a fiddle and see what we can do, and then connect it into the end of there or something. Something pretty crude, but it should work all right. Let's get into that. I'll probably have to take the seat out just for a bit of comfort. Some idiot made this car 6 feet off the ground, so I think I'll just quickly unbolt that seat, because there's only just two bolts sitting in the front there. And then I can reach everything and you'll be able to come along for the ride, kind of. Anyway, so let's get that seat out and poke that cable through and see how we're looking, eh? Here we go. Good thing I left the bolts there. That's the original brake switch. Now when I'm racing along in the scrub, I'll be able to know whether the handbrake's on or not. Cool. Boom! We have handbrake. Oh, that's awesome. I wonder if the car moves. Ugh. No, car don't move. Woohoo! handbrake is all done. So let's do something else, eh? Here we go. Okay, with these tail shafts, so this one is the original Toyota Hilux front drive shaft. Like this comes off the transmission, goes down to the front diff, which is kind of funny. It's also got a slip yoke, which it kind of doesn't really need because the diff is stationary and so is the transmission. But anyway, I'm no engineer. That is the original Toyota one, so we need this end because we've still got the Toyota diff. And this one is the one out of the AW4, or off the AW4 from the Jeep. It's a Spicer drive shaft, so it's got double cardinal on this end and a standard on that end. So, so those who don't know what a double cardinal is, just a double uni joint, which gives you a smoother, steeper angle. It's designed for four-wheel drive. It's all in pretty good nick, so I could use either one and just cut one end off and vice versa, so I'm not quite sure. So this end has to go to the transmission and this end has to go to the diff. So, and these are a big difference, right? That's quite small compared to that one, so I can't just cut one and slip it in and go from there, but I'll sort of see where it goes. I'll still try and have the slip yoke on one of them, so whether I try and make it fit around, this one here is similar diameter to that one there, so I've just got to put them both up in there and work out length on what it needs to be. So that's the front one. Now the rear one, this is the original Toyota Hilux rear drive shaft. Like you can see the double cardinal, there's the center bearing, so that's fixed, and that end is to the transmission, or the rear of the transfer case, sorry. So rear of the transfer case, center bearing, there was a cross member. I did cut it out of the old chassis. I'm pretty sure we're not going to need it. So that goes to the double cardinal, then there's the slip joint there, and then this yoke here. Now this one is she's a bit noisy. There's a bit too much movement in there for my liking. This flange here just bolts straight up to the diff itself, which is pretty good. A little tiny baby one here out of a TJ Jeep, I'm being told. Now I only needed this end because this slips into the MP242 transfer case, the one that I got out of a Jeep. So this yoke will be able to handle all the power that transmission can handle. So I would have thought it's not going to be a weak point or anything. But it comes really short, so I don't quite know how the TJ is designed. Maybe there's another piece there that goes to the diff or something similar to this one. It's got like a... Anyway, I want to use this front part and this back part, but that uni joint's pretty buggered. So I don't really need this slip joint because I've got the slip yoke inside the transmission. I know there's a lot to it, so when the diff goes up or down, this needs to be able to go in and out of the transmission. So I either try and utilize the slip yoke or have solid on the other end or have a slip yoke on there. So what I think I'm going to do is, because this end, it's all the same, they all bolt the same, this one here. So I'll be able to bolt that to the diff on the rear diff, and use this tube, cut this tube off here, and cut this tube off here, and hopefully I can find a piece of pipe or something that can slip into either one of them and give me a nice big long drive shaft. Now that's in theory. Now this is only for a four-wheel drive application. I'm not taking it on the highway or motorway or anything silly like that. So I can actually do these drive shafts myself. They're not very difficult to separate. If you have a look, see this weld here? If you grind off that weld and put a little groove right there, and I'll show you in a minute when we do separate it, this piece is just cast steel, and that's just a steel tube, and that is knocked into the inside of the tube, and you can just separate it. So I'll be doing that with a few. So I'll be doing it here, separating it there. I'll be separating it there. And I'm not sure on the front ones whether I separate it up here or somewhere along the tube, but I definitely need like this end. I don't quite know with the front one exactly yet how it's going to be configured, but I'm pretty sure I got the back one worked out. So I'm going to use a short piece here because I need that. I don't need this uni here, and I don't need all of that. So if I cut the tube there and cut that one there, hopefully I can slip something inside that will work. So that's the rear drive shaft. That's the front drive shaft. So let's start cutting and separating, and then we can sort of see if I've got any tube. Anyway, let's fiddle with all of that and get into it. Here we go. I just wanted to quickly show you this extra vice stand I made. I did make a video on vice stands in the past, but this one's a little bit different. I got this vice given to me for a birthday present, which was a few months ago, and I thought, where am I going to put this vice now? And it's a very handy vice. It has a swivel and then a pipe, has a pipe holder, which will be exceptionally handy on this tail shaft sort of cutting. And it also has a swivel function. So I thought it would be exceptionally handy around my welding area. I did have it just sitting on here, just sitting there with a couple of clamps, and I tried it out for a while and I found it really, really handy to have here. But the downside was it was in my way when I wanted something a bit bigger or to do something. So I thought I'd make this stand. It goes underneath. I bolted it to the floor. It's anchored down to concrete. It's just a bit of scrap tube that I had, and it's on a big hinge. So here's the hinge pivot, and here's the bolt. So if this gets in my way, all I've got to do is undo this little bolt here, undo that 1/2 inch bolt, and it will pivot down out of the way. So I thought that was quite a clever little stand I made there. I should have done a video on it because it did take me a little bit of time, but I just thought I'd show you that because I'm going to be using it to cut off those welds. Because I'm going to be using this end of the vise, you just open it up and you've got a pipe clamp, and you can change it to any angle. Really, really handy vise. And now it's in a really, really handy location. Anyway, let's get back into the welding and stuff. Here we go. Okay, this is what I mean, that you just push it inside and then put a weld around it. So I'll clean up this daggy old bead, and then I'll just put this on the shelf and I'll be able to use it another time. Okay, I wish this was longer, because I'm going to need it to be about that long. But what I can do is find something that slips inside and it'll be virtually perfect. So let's get out my verniers and see what I got around and go from there. Here we go. I found a piece of pipe. Yes, it's heavy wall gal fence post, but that don't matter. It's a nice piece of pipe. Like, and that's probably 3mm, and this is probably bigger. So let's just go with the bigger. So it fits that one, and it's a really snug fit over that end. We got a long tail shaft, a much longer one. So what I will do, so I know exactly how much of this to use and how far to drive this in, we'll get under the car, we'll slip this into the into the transmission, and we'll bolt this bit up to the diff, and then we'll work out the length, and I'll take an actual measurement from there to there, and then I can try and clean the gal off this half so it slips in this a lot easier, and then I can actually weld it up, and then I can clean the gal off where the galvanized material over the top of that one and make it fit. Like, it's just a little bit, like it's not as snug as I'd like it to be, but I can, without any trouble, feel confident that this being a 4-wheel drive shaft will will be just fine. So who cares about vibration? The important part is that I have this and this in alignment. It's called phasing of a tail shaft. Like if you have a look at this one here, this is the one that come out of the Jeep, come off of the transmission. It's got the yoke there and it's got the yoke there, and ultimately it is there because that's a double cardinal. You look on the other one, it's the same. It's got the yoke there and the yoke there, so they're in a line, so it's better for balancing. This one will be the same. It is there and there. So I've just got to make sure they're in alignment, and then we'll have least amount of troubles once I drive that inside there a bit. Okay, let's get it under the car and see how it looks and work out the actual length that I need. It's not, I don't think it's that long that we need, but it's somewhere in between. Somewhere in between there. So let's get under the car. Tons of room. That one's in. So, need a bit in the middle. Okay, I've been a little bit busy. I've cleaned up this piece of pipe and drilled a few plug welds, and also so I could see how far it's gone through. So we've got probably 40 mil, or actually 50 mil. Now the thing I was concerned with, if I'm doing this, how straight is it going to be? So if I look between, see if you look right between there, and I turn that, there's no big gaps. It stays fairly true all the way. Like, I mean, my bench isn't perfectly flat or straight, but that isn't showing me any gaps. What I'm sort of thinking, I plug weld those up, plug weld those 4 holes up, and stick it back under there, and then work out the actual length, because I had to actually drive it in there. It's a really tight fit on this one, so I mushroom this end a little bit, so I'll have to hit that with a flappy just to get that mushrooming sort of swollen part of it off. But we're halfway there. So because I worked out, where are we, I had a look and I felt comfortable with this much sitting inside the seal, sitting on the spline, so we've got that much movement for when the diff goes up and down and gets closer. So when you compress the springs, it gets closer. So I've got this much here if it goes outside of full travel, and this much for when it hits a bump really hard, or so they say. But anyway, so that's the slip rate yoke end. I will weld those up and we'll jam it back under there and see how it looks. So here we go, eh? Okay, here we are again. So here's the drive shaft with a couple little plugs in it. I'm going to weld all the way around, but for the minute it's okay. So we'll put it into the Watsy, into that mark or thereabouts. That one bolt should be everything for the minute. Okay, so it shows I've got to take a bit off. I've got to trim this a little bit down. So I'll quickly do that and then I'll come back to you. Okay, I'm back. Cut that bit off. It's kind of funny, just had a lunch break and my wife said to me, what are you crawling under the car for? You got a hoist. She's right. But this is so much more fun. So I'm just going to keep doing it, and I'm already set up. As the diff goes up and down, it'll go in and out. I'll put a Nico pen mark right here, because that's about where it's supposed to be. We have a rear tail shaft, and because it's galvanized, it'll never rust. When we go out in the mud bogging and stuff like that, the rest of the car can rust, but this will never rust. Anyway, let's get into that. Now, how am I going to shim it so it's not wobbly? It's got to be away, bit of tape, just until it's welded. Yeah, let's go with that. So all I've done is just plug welded in the end there, so it's not going to move. The whole drive shaft is in phase, if you know what I mean, which I was explaining before. So the yokes are lined up and it's to the right length. Here's the old Nico pen mark. I'll jam this end up in there. And set that on there. So I'll take it out one more time and then I'll weld all of these up, but I'll do that off camera. So let's get under the front and do it all again, one more time. Here we go. So here's the finished product of the rear one, all cleaned up. Just got to give it a quick coat of black and no one will notice. So I haven't actually balanced it and I'm not worried about it being balanced. It is as true as it can be. I've put a straight edge along it and it's really neat and tidy. Rolls along really smooth. As smooth as it can with unis on each end. So it's I call that done. So we just got to paint it once get these front ones done. I'll put the old verniers on the outside of this, because this is the one that's connected to the transmission and this is the end that connects to the diff. So Toyota, Jeep. So I'm thinking if I just cut it off behind where the weld is, and that piece will be able to come out, and cut this one, I'll pull that slip joint out and I'll cut that off right off there. That will be able to get, I reckon this will virtually slip straight into here. Now it's about, that's if this is about a 2mm wall on the tube. Well, it sounds all good in theory. So let's start hacking and see how it fits, because this is plenty longer than it needs to be. And we've got all of this room to shorten it if we have to. So, and we've got the slip on this one comes out a long way and it keeps wanting to come back in. So there must be a fair bit of grease in there to suck it back in. We've got a fair bit of movement there. So I'm kind of just going to double check with the tape measure under there to make sure that we're not going to go and cut it too short, but I think we're going to be right. So let's start cutting into these, eh? Here we go. Okay, so that's been a bit of fun, a bit of cutting. Now I hacked the old tube, you saw me cut that off. So I started by cutting that, and then I thought I'd have a look at what's going on in there, whether I could just slip it straight over this one, and well man, it's nothing like it. I knew that, I knew it was, but I didn't think it'd be that thin. I thought the wall of that tube might have been a bit thicker. Anyway, so I just cut the end off. And now we're down to this so it fits nice and snugly. I just have to drive it in with a hammer. But what I have, it's something I can get around, but the workaround, something that I didn't sort of encounter. This outer sleeve, that's all it is just a sleeve. It's like a tube, what do you call it, like a grease cover. The centerpiece, which is that very end little piece there, that is the spline, and this has got an internal spline, because I realised all this afterwards, because the grease nibble goes in there, goes into the internal spline, and that is the actual male spline, and this is just a sleeve over the top. So if I was just to slip that in there and like get it to the right length and everything, and then just whack a bead of weld around it, I'm only welding to the sleeve. and chances are that sleeve is just pushed on there and not substantial. My workaround for it would be just to put a big deep V grind right on that edge. I might even do this one. I think that's just for to make it a tighter press on fit, but I'm gonna grind that one out as well. Grind them both out, and then put a nice big heavy beater weld in there, and then just flappy disc it off so it's nice and flat and it fits inside the tube easy. But once I work out the length on what it's supposed to be, I will also plug weld, like drill a couple of holes here and on the other side, and plug weld it as well as weld it on the end. So then I know that I'm getting a good bite, not just to that sleeve, but to the actual, to where the spline is. So hopefully, so if I go up a massive hill in four-wheel drive and then all of a sudden I lose front drive, then I know what sort of happened. I've snapped it off here, and then I'll have to bite the bullet and actually spend some real money and get a new shaft built. Which, you know, they're not that dear, but this is not a high budget build by any means. Actually, none of my builds are high. Anyway, so that's where I come from, is that I cut it up, thinking, yeah, should be right, and then I realised that that's just a sleeve. It just sounds all tinny. Like, I mean, that one sounds more solid. Actually, it's a quite a heavy wall, the Jeep one, where the Toyota one was really thin, which not compared to the rear one I just built, because the Toyota one was much thicker than the Jeep one. Go figure, eh? Anyway, probably because it's the rear shaft, and much more load and torque would be pushed onto that. But anyway, well, they're all just wild ideas. Anyway, so I'll go under the car and take the final measurement, do the old groove out with a grinder and put a heap of weld in there. So we've got a good surface and secure to connect to, and then I can cut this tube to length and then drive it in and put a couple of plugs right where that edge is going to be. Some sort of hope of it holding together. Anyway, then our drive shafts will be done. So let's get into them, eh? Here we go. Use your hoist, she said. Yeah, okay, Dale. Yeah, I'll use the hoist. So I've got all that welded and tidied up with the on the Lennish belt and the flappy disc and things like that, so it's, you know, nice and flat, if that makes sense. Like you put a ruler across there and it's pretty flat, as to say. I think I'd just put it on the lathe or something, but it'd be too hard to try and chuck it up. And anyway, so I did it the dodgy way and done it this way. So that's all relatively true. And now the other problem I got inside of these pipes is a seam. The other ones seem to be okay, but this one has got, you can see that little height difference in there, that little bead. Well, I've got to try and get rid of that down to there, because that's where the end of it's going to be, and I don't really want to have to drive it in there. Like a nice snug fit would be good, but so if I can try and get rid of these little seam in there, I've got a burr, carbide burr, that might get some of the way, maybe. Also got a little stone on the old drill thing happening, so I'll give a couple of them a go and see how far we can get. So let's get into that. Very nice. I'm sure it would go. Like, we're in past where the weld is, so we're up to this material here, like the sleeve. Sort of like honing out a cylinder. I'm pretty sure we've got it enough. And I'll see if I can get you guys closer. There you go, see down where that little pile of dirt is? Well, that's, I don't need to go that far. So just past them holes on the left and the right. So I think we're going to be good. Anyway, let's, because The thing I'm concerned about is as soon as I start driving that in there to get it to the length, I'm committed. I should be committed, but I mean, I'm committed to it's not coming out. So I will start tapping, and I'll empty the crud out of there first, and then I'll start tapping and see what we can do, eh? Here we go. Okay, so I've confirmed the length and everything that it needs to be, and this is the line that I've got to get to the outside edge, or just past that actual hole. So here goes, I'm committing myself. Just got to make sure that the yoke is lined up with the other one. Oh, look at that. We're in. It's easier than I thought. Okay, let's just line it up. We're done. Because I've still got plenty of room in the slip joint up here. I'm not real worried, so I can actually wiggle out to the end a bit. See where it's just on the edge? At least I know most of that weld is going to be on the actual center spline, not the outer, which is golden. Give it some heat. So it's a nice firm fit. Okay, it all rides on this. We got it marked up with the line. We're right on the hole there, and I've lined up the yokes so it's phased, if that's the right word. Let's do this. Boom. Turn it over. How's that? Very nicely, and yeah, that's relatively thin tube. Everything's all good there, but the crucial part was that down there. I could drill a couple more holes and give it a big plug weld, but I don't know if it's going to need it. We're about to find out. So there we go. Those two drive shafts are welded up and to the right length. Even got my rust prevention piece in there, the galvanized part. They're all sort of cleaned up, ready for a bit of paint. Now I was going to go and put a bit of paint on them, but I thought I should test fit it. So I test fitted both of them, and I got a problem with the short one. Let me show you under the car. Like lengthwise, perfect. Hang on, I'll just get under the car and I'll show you what I mean. Here we go. Okay, hopefully you can see where I'm saying. This here is the gearbox cross member. Move the light out of the way. So there's the adapter parts that I made in this piece here. This is the original Toyota Hilux cross member. Now I did actually turn it around 180 degrees so it would work. That's awesome, it does. See this little, is that a little drop down on that cross member? Well, if you have a look here, there's the output of the transfer case. Like here's the transfer case just here. But here's the drive shaft. Now it turns nicely as it's supposed to, but when I hook up the drive shaft, yeah, so we got a bit of a clearance issue, and I didn't sort of think about that because I had to drop the leg of this transfer case from the other side in a previous video. Link in the description for that. But the cross member's in the way. I can't put the drive shaft in, like all the way up under there. Like there is that round disky looking thing. It's where the tail shaft hooks on the other end. It's not that long a piece, as you saw on the bench. Yeah, we got a problem with the cross members in the way. Not by a lot though. I'm thinking probably 15, maybe 20 mil. So I could cut a big chunk out of this, and I'd have to replate it and gusset it and things like that. So, because I just love lying under cars, I've got the jack underneath here at the minute, and I'm about to undo all the bolts in there and the bolts out here and drop it down, put the tail shaft on, and then try and sit this up there to exactly where it's meant to be. So come along for the ride on that. We're going to do a bit more cross member alteration. Yeah, sorry about that. I was hoping to be just tail shafts in and we're away. But anyway, so let's start dropping that out of the way and start hacking. So let's get into that. I'll connect this one up, like here's where it's supposed to bolt onto, and there it is there. So I'll just connect them up, see where we're sort of sitting. I'll hack out where I roughly sketched the cross member, and then we'll see how we're looking. Let's sit this into place and see where we're going. So here's the cross member all unbolted. There's the marks. I just drew that across the top there a second ago. But that's where we're going to try and cut out. It's a bit of a mess down there, but anyway, we're going to cut that out. See what I mean? There's that divot for the drive shaft. That would have helped. Got to cut through those 2 layers. So it's really the bottom piece of skin that I'm going to be leaving. Don't quite know how to do that yet. I'll start hacking and see where it ends up, eh? Here we go. Yeah, that looks about where it's supposed to go. A little bit hacked. I probably could cut these off at a little bit better angle, because I will put a piece of flat bar or something in there somehow to give that bit better strength, and I'll put something on the underside here to help it out, I guess, if that's the right word. Yeah, I think that's the only real way to get that sorted. Maybe I'll just cut that off, just give it that little bit of room, make it look a bit more tidy. So yeah, I'll do that off camera and we'll go and put it underneath, eh? Here we go. Okay, so she's all cut out and tons of clearance. It was a bit tricky to get the camera right where I wanted to show you, but I thought I'd just finish trimming. I had to cut this on a bit more of an angle because of the direction of the drive shaft. So she's all cut out and tidied up, as tidy up as it can be. Now there's not a lot of meat there to consider it a strong enough cross member. So I've got a bit of sheet here, that's 1.6 sheet, which is the same thickness as one of these layers. So I'll just sort of lay it in there and go up over the top here somehow and weld it all in. Then I might have to put some gussets under here or something, I think, give it some extra strength so it doesn't, because this end will just bend up and like the middle will just bow down, or it won't be good once we put all the weight on it and then start really giving it, and the torque and everything will start twisting and stuff, and we really don't want that. So let's mark out a bit of steel and see if I can get it into a bit of shape. I'll use the old folder to hopefully get it where we need it. So let's see if I can manage that. Doesn't that look nice? All tidied up, big notch out of it for the drive shaft. All cleaned up, welded on. Now I think I've taken too much out just to leave it go like that. So I'm planning on using these pieces. So I've shaped them all up, cut them to size. So that one will sit on there nicely like that. And these bits sit on the sides. And I'll just weld all of these into place. And I'm thinking, being at a 5mm steel where the original was only at a, like the piece I put in there is only 1.6. I thought it was like 1.6, but I think it's about 2mm. And it's all pressed. So with all those extra bits in there, I think we're going to be pretty safe. Like here's the bolt holes. It's not these ones, it's these two here for this end of the cross member. I think that'll be really nice and super durable. So anyway, I'll weld all that up and get a bit of paint on it, and then I think we're nearly done. How does that look? All nice and shiny, all welded up. I even see my reflection. I tried not to go too high because if it bottoms out underneath the vehicle, like that's going to be probably one of the lowest points of the vehicle, so I'm hoping we're going to have tons of strength. Well, if the original material is about 2mm, I think 5mm should be plenty. We'll be right. So now all I got to do is just put some paint on it. Here we go. Yeah, so we're almost done. Only got a few things to go now. Drive shafts are all done. Cross member's been fixed, which I've been thinking I needed to do for a while. Finally, handbrake, I can actually park it when I go driving and stuff. Yeah, if you want to see more weird content like this, consider subscribing. That'd be awesome if you could. So guys, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. I'm getting ready for the zombies, so see ya.